Hello survivors, welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to share something that was very helpful for me when I was going through my recovery and just trying to understand this whole thing. And that is the Karpman Drama Triangle. And I've got it displayed here on the screen. It's basically a diagram or a model of behavior that is destructive, manipulative. It basically allows all three of these characters to remain in the victim role. And this was introduced by Stephen Karpman in 1968. He was a student of Eric Berne, who was the father of transactional analysis. Sometimes too, this triangle can be a diagram of something called transactional analysis, but the main function of it is to show how these different roles interact, and it's destructive patterning. And I think that it's good representation of like different roles that people play and the different ways that they interact with one another that keep them all three of these are modes of the victim. So the persecutor feels like a victim, the rescuer feels like a victim, and obviously the victim is, the personification of the victim. And we can play out any or all of these. There might be some particular favorites that we have, but the victim's motto down here at the bottom is "poor me," basically. It's like, the powerless child, and the one who feels bad for themselves, who feels powerless, who feels victimized. That's something that the predator and the rescuer both have in common. They can slide back and forth between these roles, or even, all the way around the triangle. But then the predator's role is that they are the person seeking control. They're the person seeking to punish. They want to blame others because they feel like the victim, their anger, causes them to lash out and blame, to punish. Their need is to have control. And I have a little theory about this, but I tend to think that the predator, if this is like the child who's powerless, the predator is compensating for a lack of power. They want to claim power. So their strategy for that is becoming the predator, because it makes them have this sense of false power that they're so lacking down here in the victim. To me, the strategy of the rescuer is compensating for the lack of acceptance. So what they do to compensate for that is they go and they accept. They like shower others with acceptance or compliance in order to get acceptance themselves. So I see this as lack of power, lack of acceptance, and these are their modes. This is, by the way, just all me kind of just, I'm no psychologist, but this is just my ideas and thoughts on it. So either one of those can feel like the victim. And I actually think too that in some ways when the child feels powerless, or unaccepted, punished, blamed, they either identify with the punishing parent or the caregiving parent, the rescuing parent. And so they start playing out those roles as well. And that's how we end up here. I mean, I'm just theorizing. This is not anything documented, anything that's been established or researched, or it would be interesting to see if there is any research out there about children identifying with either of the parents' roles or both, and how those things develop. But regardless, I'm just kind of throwing this all out there for people's consideration. So anyway, the predator's motto, or persecutor is another name for that, is that they want to say it's all your fault. They want to say it's not me being the child, the person who's wrong, the person who's punished. You're the one. I'm going to punish you. So I'm going to externalize this punishment Instead of internalizing it and saying, you know, I'm the bad one, they're going to say you're the bad one. And they're going to like do that through power, through controlling, blaming, being oppressive, being angry, and superior. The rescuer, on the other hand, is their motto is let me help you. So they have guilt if they don't come to the rescue. They want acceptance. So they're going to comply and sort of like go along with what is established. They want to establish acceptance through their rescuing behavior. And that's what they're in search of. That's their solution or strategy out of feeling in the victim mode. So by stepping into rescuer or stepping into predator, each of these characters gets momentary or gets relief from feeling their victimized self, which I'm going to call the powerless child. So, but ultimately, these are all still strategies that are connected to being this victim. So all three, this predator identifies as the victim. So I feel like the victim, therefore I'm going to punish you. I feel like the victim, therefore I'm going to reach out with acceptance so that you'll give me acceptance. They're just different strategies to getting away from this. And I mean, again, I think it's identification with the punishing parent, or with like, you know, feeling non-accepted. So rushing out with acceptance. There's, you know, those are just some ideas. So the thing with this is that it's all, regardless of where you are on this triangle, you're still in a victimized mode. You're still on this triangle of victimhood. And it doesn't really give anyone any long-term relief from this. It's a destructive cycle. The predator and the rescuer will often work together. The predator will say, poor me. The rescuer will come to the rescue. You know, the predator will get to slip down here into victimhood. The rescuer will go rescue them from this. You know, it goes all the way around the circle in so many different combinations. But it really is like being locked, just like on being on that merry-go-round of the cycle of abuse. You're still locked onto this system of remaining the victim. So none of these are permanent relief from this. It's just temporary relief. It's a band-aid. It's a strategy away from. It's an avoidance. Both of these are avoidance from feeling like the victim. It's not really solving that problem. Because the power is actually still outside of you when you're in any of these roles. In the victim, you're the powerless child, so the power is outside of you. When you're the predator, you're feeling like the power is outside of you, therefore you're trying to control what's outside of you through all these manipulations. When you're the rescuer, you still see the power as outside of you, but you're trying to align with it so that you get acceptance by it. So one is through tearing others down. One is through trying to enable or being caregiving, suppliant, compliant, all of those things in order to get away from just feeling like the powerless child. So this is really worth studying. This gave me a lot of insights. A role that I really liked to play was rescuer. I always wanted to fix the other person in order to feel okay, help the other person, rescue, you know, counsel them, or be a listening ear for them, try to like soothe them. And it kept me tied to my own victimhood. And I'm going to offer here something that I've come up with that I think is, if this is the destructive, manipulative triangle here, the drama triangle that keeps you in this drama of destruction and victimhood, I'm going to offer something here that, to me, I was thinking about the archetype of the victim, and I was thinking, what's the alter ego of the victim? What is the constructive side of this? What is the aware side of this? And something that I've come up with is something called self-championing. So here, in this case, I've just taken this Karpman triangle here and sort of reduced it down. And what I'm going to offer is that since these are all versions of the victim, I believe there's a mirror image of this. If this is the destructive cycle, I believe there is a constructive cycle. And I'm going to show that here. And I'm just offering this as information for review. Again, I haven't done any formal research on this, but it's just an idea or a theory that I'm exploring and offering. So I'm going to say that the opposite of being a victim is not the predator or the rescuer. Those are different masks of still remaining the victim. I'm going to offer that the difference is being a self-champion. So the victim believes that the power is outside of themselves, that they're powerless. This is the child image, essentially. The self-champion believes that the power is within themselves. This would be the equivalent of the empowered adult. So, for example, if this victim is the powerless child down here, I'm going to say that this axis is awareness, choice, the ability to awareness of other options, other choices, and growth. So awareness, growth, options. The victim, the predator, the rescuer, they don't really have options. They don't really have awareness. They don't really have choice. They are stuck. And therefore, they're kind of stuck. It's sort of like an island that they're stuck on together. So there becomes all this drama of manipulations for power, for feeling acceptance, for feeling okay, negotiations for power, because ultimately they all feel powerless. I'm going to say the way out of that is to embrace our own power, self-champion, and become the empowered adult. This is someone who does have choices. This is someone who does have awareness. This is someone who has growth. And I actually think that there's a whole mirror image to all three of these, and I'm going to kind of go through that now. So bear with me as I just do this. If we take away, if this is the destructive cycle down here, if we take away that and we look instead at what the potential constructive cycle could be. So let's see if we can get that. Sorry, upper. So I'm missing this particular graphic, but imagine if you can that there's a triangle up here. Why isn't that showing? There we go. So if this down here is destructive, I'm going to say this is constructive. And I think that there are two ways out of that to get there, to get out of victim and into self-champion. I'm going to say that, again, like what this predator is lacking is power. And, punishing, feeling punished, feeling the lack of power from being punished, feeling the need to punish others, identification with that punishing adult who has the power, because that's their strategy. And I'm going to say that this rescuer, again, is the caregiving, enabling, the one who it's all about acceptance, trying to find acceptance. These are strategies to receive acceptance. So instead of punishing others or giving out acceptance to others, again, realizing or thinking that the power is outside of ourselves, trying to get power through punishing, or trying to get acceptance through giving it to others, I believe that the mirror images, the more aware versions of these, would be considering, having the feeling of power, as opposed to being powerless. On this side, it would be someone who has enough power and is able to share it with others. So I'm going to call them the advocate. This is someone who has enough power that not only do they have enough for themselves, they have enough for others. So they show up as supporting. advocating for instead of punishing against, blaming. They're advocating for, supporting. And then over here, the lack of acceptance that the rescuer feels, I'm going to say the higher image of that is the person who is self-accepting, and the person who is self-rescuing. So I'm going to say here, so this is self-acceptance, self-rescuing. This person has self-caregiving and self-worth. So to me, this is the constructive equivalent, which allows for movement away from the victim paradigm, the victim, drama circle. So I think that as we increase in awareness, in growth, in options, we can source our power not through tearing down others, not through blaming others, not through punishing others, but advocating for others, being supportive, letting the excess of power spill over into empowering others. Likewise here on the rescuer side, instead of being desperate for acceptance, looking to the outside for acceptance, being like sycophants, or being people who are always obliging and complying with and caregiving and enabling and trying to help the other to access helping oneself, and engaging in self-care, self-worth, becoming the self-rescuer. So I interpret these as healthy interactions with the self and other, rather than destructive modes of interacting with self and others, where instead of seeing the power and the acceptance as being outside of ourselves, as the victimless, the powerless child or the victim does, we see the acceptance and the power as being within ourselves. And this is the integrated, self-champion, empowered adult. So that's what I'm offering today as just consideration. Really do look into that Karpman Drama Triangle if that's something that you think is a useful tool, or where you might be on that triangle. See in what ways do you play any of those roles, and in what way can you transform out of any of those, not feeling like the victim, not feeling like the predator, the need to be the predator, not feeling the need to be the rescuer, by engaging in this constructive pattern instead, being an advocate because you have enough power, being the self-rescuer because you give your own self-acceptance and self-championing, being an adult who is empowered is rather than disempowered. So that's my little video on the Karpman Drama Triangle, transactional analysis, and an alternative constructive pattern of behavior that might be more fruitful. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay sane.